What's up, YouTube family? It's your man White Wolf, and welcome back to another exciting training session. Today, we're going to be covering mental development, going over the 7 deadly sins. So, let us go ahead and begin. Let us first define what sin is. How I like to define sin is anything we do that closes our energy pathways and lowers our vibrational frequency. We have to recognize that everything is energy. The world, God, and us are all energy. And for the human being, there are human faculties, the body, the mind, the emotions, and life force are all aspects of our energy. And so, as we start to open up our energy pathways, we get connected to God, to our spirit team, to the angelic realm. I had described this and talked about this more in the chakra series. That being said, anything that we're doing that is closing off these pathways or is what is taking us further away from God, taking us further away from that connection of divinity. As we already discussed in our Hermetic series, in this plane of reality, we have natural laws, rules, and regulations that govern this plane of reality that are always in effect, whether we know about them or not, whether we utilize them or not. This is important for us to recognize and start to learn because it starts to make all these different definitions and how we conduct ourselves make a lot more sense. If we look up the definition of sinning, you'll get a number of different types of results. The key thing is it is taking us away from God. Because everything is energy, and because this is a plane of duality, these negative vibrations, these negative energies that we put out into the world close up our pathways, making us sick, making us further away from taking us further away from God. While on the opposite end of the polarity, as we follow our virtues and overcome challenges and work and develop ourselves and develop our pathways, we are getting closer to God, closer to the divine forces that are all around us all the time. This is why it's important for us to recognize there's a lot of connections between our cultures, between different cultures, different teachings, and they intertwine with each other to kind of help piece together a lot of missing aspects that are needed for us to get a higher level of understanding. Let's go ahead and talk about our first sin. The first sin we're going to be discussing is greed. Now, we've already covered greed when we were discussing the Four Noble Truths. Greed is one of the main seeds of suffering. As we define greed, intense and selfish desire for something, the desire to have more of something that is necessary or fair. The problem with greed is it is never enough. Greed is a black hole that will continuously consume us. And I believe that greed heavily messes with our root chakra because we're never finding that place of security. We're never finding that place of having enough and being able to trust that we are in a place of security. When we talk about greed, we can see this manifest in so many different ways, such as hoarding. A lot of people have a hoarding issue. We build up so much material possessions and we're unable to give them away. Or even worse, we start allowing our household and our spaces, our sacred spaces, start becoming cluttered and start blocking up not just the energy inside of us, but the energy around us. Another way we see this manifesting is the way our current structure is set up. We are more willing to continuously chase the dollar, to continuously chase money at the expense of destroying our resources, at poisoning our food and soil, at depleting our water at a ridiculous rate, at not coming together to solve a lot of our issues, that we have the technology, we have the knowledge, and it's really just changing the mentality. If we do not change our mentality of greed, we will be stuck in this perpetual cycle of suffering. Because we're discussing the 7 deadly sins, we're also going to discuss the 7 heavenly virtues. Now, when we're discussing sin, the virtue that goes with greed will be charity or generosity. As we're already talking, we're on a plane of duality, and it is important that we work both aspects of this polarity. Greed being that which is closing up our pathways, making us freak the F out, never feeling secure in ourselves, moving and switching to the opposite polarity of generosity, of being able to share, because we're in a world of abundance. This plane of reality is abundant in more ways than just financial. Abundance comes in so many different forms, in love, in relationships, so on. And so we are going to leave it there. I think we hit on greed enough. Let us focus on the virtue of generosity, in this case, to overcome greed. As we start to work this virtue, we're starting to realize how much God is working in our lives, that God is providing for all of our needs, that God is working through us, and that we're able to really start to not just develop our faith, but really recognize that this is a world of abundance, that God is taking care of us. There have been many different stories, but one very famous one that I'm pretty sure a lot of people are familiar with is the story of Yeshua, aka Jesus, with the 2 baskets, the fish, and going around and collecting food and being able to feed everybody in the village. It's stories like this that really show the power of generosity, that together we can really overcome our problems, and through uniting and cooperation, we can do so much more than if we were to do it alone. And so I'm going to leave it there for our first sin. Let us move on to our second sin, lust. Now, lust. Lust is a sin that is being promoted nowadays very heavily. As we discuss lust, a strong, uncontrolled desire of deep craving for unhealthy attachments, usually in the form of sexuality. Lust does not only need to be sexual. We can lust after different things like food, like materialism. Lust is that uncontrolled craving that starts to slip us towards that identification of addiction. For this sense, we're going to talk more about in context of sexual desire, unhealthy sexual desire. Right now, everything is hyper-sexualized. When we are in this perpetual state of lust, we're not really understanding how much that is affecting our energy field. The importance of our seed, specifically in men. It holds so much strength, power. It is a huge aspect of our life energy. One aspect of our life energies. When we waste our seed, we are cutting off many different types of connections. As we discussed in our chakra discussion, sexual energy and creative energy are the same. They are intertwined amongst each other. When we give in to the sin of lust, we are cutting off our creativity. When we start talking about different practices like Qigong, our sexual energy is very vital when we start developing our Jing. Sexual energy is a type of life force. This is where we hold our seed. This is where we are able to give life. And as we dispose of our seed improperly, we are weakening ourselves at such a high degree. It is just so vital. We use that energy from our seed for so many different reasons, especially when we start talking about raising the Christ oil. The power, the life energy that is within the seed is so powerful for so many different aspects of ourself that I just explained, whether it be creativity, whether it be different aspects of working with our life energies, and whether it be trying to raise the Christ oil. The power that is in our sexual energy is vital, even for keeping a lot of our normal bodily functions working properly. Now, going back to lust. Lust is showing us that we're starting to become uncontrolled. It is literally that one step away from addiction. As we start to lose control of our senses, of our desires, and we start to habitually do things, I'm pretty sure it's pretty self-explanatory how we see that it's taking us away from God. That by wasting our energy in these different types of ways, as well as starting to become addicted to other aspects of sin, it takes our focus away from what we're really trying to accomplish, what we're really trying to go after. And so I believe the heavenly virtue that relates to lust is chastity. Yeah, maintaining that energy, that sexual energy within ourselves is very important through many different teachings, whether it be in this one, whether it be in the yogi teaching. Our sexual energy transmutes into so many different areas of our body. And so I'm going to leave it there. The heavenly virtue that goes with lust is chastity. The third sin we're going to be discussing. Let us go ahead and discuss gluttony. We define gluttony as habitual or excessive eating or drinking. Our stomach health is important, if you didn't know that. And the things that we put into it should help us grow. Now, currently in society, we have so much different fast food. Our food system is poisoned. Even the food that we have at the grocery stores is poisoned because of the amount of pesticides that they spray on everything. Thus, we are also destroying our soil. We have seen the quality of our food has degraded at, like, I think it's like 6 times the strength from 100 years ago. When we're talking about gluttony and we're talking about overconsumption and habitual eating and drinking, our stomach, our solar plexus, holds the aspect of action, of fire, our will. It is a very important energy center. When we're not properly taking care of our stomach health, we are degrading this energy center. We're making it so that way we're not able to develop our fire, that will. The strength of our will allows us to literally bend our reality. Gluttony. Gluttony is just one of those sins that shows that we need self-control. It helps us really start developing that discipline. All of these really help us to start developing discipline. As we become disciplined with having enough, disciplined in staying focused, not watching sexually explicit content, not chasing and drooling over materialism possessions, not overeating. The process of our stomach and transforming food into energy is something we need to start to focus more on, because these fast food at every corner, or this alcohol, is cutting off our power and our strength, is weakening our will. Heck, look at the obesity rate at the moment. I know we have different types of movements and ideologies that are really just destructive. And one of these main ones is healthy at any size. You should always love yourself. But that type of self-love where you take the actions and steps to think about your future, to take care of your health so you're able to live longer. The problem we have a lot now with scientific research is there's so much different types of conflicting data that you will have some people say that you could be 400 pounds and that you're healthier than somebody who's like 150. Granted, they're probably talking about somebody who's taken so many different types of steroids due to athleticism, which is a whole nother issue that we're dealing with. Getting to that place of health is vital. And getting to that place of understanding that we can feel inside of our stomach. We can start becoming sensitive enough to feel that the food that we're putting inside of us, how our body starts to process it. Because a lot of our foods are extremely heavy, especially when we're talking about, like, what's it called? Ground beef. Ground beef. Do not buy ground beef at Walmart or these grocery stores right now. Something is in the ground beef. And I'm not sure what it is. But last time I had some ground beef, my stomach literally is telling me that there's something in there that I should not be eating, that has made me disgusted to a point where I was just like, I can't do it. Never again. I've made that boundary with myself to never again eat ground beef from Walmart. And just starting to recognize that this sin particularly is attacking our energy center of action, of being able to get the fire, the power of our will. And then when we go to the opposite spectrum and we start taking that action, a lot of that is being attacked as well, because now our fitness industry is promoting all these different supplements, all these different types of steroids, all this BS that you don't freaking need. We should be able to run efficiently off of the food that we're eating. And the fact that a lot of us are starting to use that as business because we're realizing that you're not getting your nutrients from your food, that we're going to start selling you supplements instead of actually focusing on the problem of fixing our food system. We're going back to that place of greed. And so, the heavenly virtue that combats gluttony is moderation or temperance. Everything's in moderation. Everything that we do should be in a healthy moderation. Now, you always hear me say surpass your limits. Even that is in moderation to a degree, because you shouldn't be giving it 1,000% every single day. Sometimes you only got 20% in you, and then you give it 22%. You only got 30% in you. You give it 32%. You know what I'm saying? It's about surpassing your limits. It's about recognizing where you're currently at and being able to go a little bit further, because that's how we grow. Growth is in that place of a little bit of discomfort, but also pushing ourselves, strengthening our will. But everything in moderation. Same thing with what we are eating, whether it be meat, veggies, fruits, grains. All these things need to be in a certain type of healthy moderation. That's the same thing for our life. How we sleep, how we train, how we learn, how we give ourselves self-recovery. Everything in life is in moderation. So, I'm going to leave it there. Let us move on to our fourth deadly sin. The next sin that we're going to be discussing is sloth. We can define sloth as laziness that comes from carelessness, habitual disinclination to exertion. When we're talking about this sin, the keywords of laziness. Laziness is just one of those poor choices that hold us back in life. We have to recognize that whatever position we are in life is because of the choices we've made and the actions we've taken. We are the ones who have gotten us to the place in our life now. Some of us are in a really good place, some of us not that much. But we have to recognize that because we've gotten ourselves here, we have the power to change that. We're not able to do any type of change if we're being lazy. Laziness holds us back on many levels. Let's talk about our mind for a second. Because when we're being lazy in the development of our mind by watching TV continuously. Look, I get it's nice to kick your feet up. It's nice to relax. That's okay. We all need a little bit of a breather. But some of this mind-numbing television that we have nowadays is so ridiculous. A lot of these adult cartoons created by the Western culture are just so freaking ridiculous. It is literally destroying our minds at a freaking crazy rate. Some of the disgusting comedy, we'll say, is just poor taste. I'm sorry. It is just, and I say that's my opinion. In my opinion, it's poor taste. Because there's so much more we could be watching. You know, a type of comedy that helps us learn through wisdom. It doesn't always have to be wisdom. It could just be a good story, a good value. But so much of what we're seeing on TV nowadays in our entertainment is just these characters doing the most dumbest possible things you could imagine. Like, why would we promote that type of behavior? In every one of these shows, it is the father being so incompetent, so weak. It is an embarrassment. When we're talking about this sin of sloth, it's showing us and helping us recognize that how we manage ourselves matters. Let's switch to talking about when we provide acts of service or having to work in teams or jobs or things of that nature. If we're being lazy at our job, it is probably one of the worst things we can freaking do. How do we expect to accomplish great tasks if we're only putting in 2% effort, or if we're cutting corners, if we're trying to cheat? There's no way to have a good, sturdy foundation. There's no way of creating something that is real and meaningful in value. As well as when we're cutting corners and being lazy in these types of ways, we're not able to put our heart into what we're doing. Whatever we're doing in this life, we should always put our heart into it. We should give it everything we've got. Because that's how, one, we grow, but two, how you put your own special touch on whatever you're doing. It gives it that character. It gives it meaning. It gives it value. Sloth. Oh, this sin is just, it wastes our time. It makes whatever we do into a low quality product. It takes away our own value. This is one of those sins where it cuts at the jugular. Because whatever we do should have some type of value. We shouldn't be doing things that are completely meaningless. Now, when I was in the military, I did a lot of meaningless things, like sweeping dirt or mopping in the rain, the rocks, things of that nature. Those were things of complete meaninglessness. And it's like, why are we wasting our time doing meaningless tasks? At this point, now that I'm where I'm at now, I'm recognizing that there's no reason to ever do something so freaking meaningless with your time. Your time is valuable. You only have so much of it, and you don't get it back. So use it to develop, to grow, to enhance, to put your heart, your soul into things. The heavenly virtue that I believe is in response to sloth is diligence or productiveness. I mean, you can't really beat that. When you're diligent in your work, you're diligent in your goals and dreams and desires, especially if you're trying to do something big, but you will always take those little steps closer and closer and closer and closer, and you will one day get there. When we're being lazy and half-assed with shit, we will never get to what we're trying to accomplish. We will never bring in our manifestations. We have to have that discipline to be able to really put that work behind what we're trying to do. It requires energy. Everything requires energy. And that diligence is the energy that brings that manifestation to life. That laziness is building on a foundation of crud, a weak foundation that when you get to the second story is just going to collapse. Diligence, productiveness, in the right way, not being hypnotized by others' influence, not falling for these illusions. And in this sense, I'm talking, for example, let's say AI. AI is this technology that is going to completely blow away our socks. It's already starting to do that. We're already seeing how powerful AI is nowadays. Now, are we going to use that for the right purposes of helping everybody? Or are we going to use that power for the wrong purposes and start to create the Terminator universe? Let's not do that. Let's not. But I'm saying this because we have to recognize, what is it that we're really doing with that diligence? What is it that we're really creating? Because remember, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And you might be a good little worker, you might be a good little noodle, but a lot of people were only doing their jobs. A lot of people who worked under Hitler were only doing their job. So I'm saying this as a warning to recognize, what is it we're being diligent in? Because diligence is good, trust, unless it's for the wrong purpose. And moving on to the next deadly sin. The next deadly sin we're going to be discussing is pride. We can describe pride as an excessive love of one's excellence. When we start having this inflated ego, it just, first of all, nobody is above or below anybody else. When we start falling into this sin, we start having this superiority complex. We start thinking that we can treat people any way that we want. We start thinking that we're above people, that people are below us. We start acting in this very superficial type of way. The thing about acting in this type of manner is you create barriers between you and those who want to help you, between those who might see your goal and dream and want to help you along that path. Once we start being in this state of self-excellence above all else, and we start putting people below us, the way we treat each other only creates sickness inside of ourselves. It literally makes us sick because we're not treating people the way we want to be treated, aka the golden rule. This inflated sense of ego, or this inflated sense of superiority, keeps us stuck in our ego, keeps us in a place where we're not going to be able to get far or to get help, and we'll get humbled real fast. In not a good type of way, but a type of way where we stumble, we fall, and we look for anybody who might be able to help us up. But instead, they will laugh at us because we made ourselves into a joke by thinking that we were better than everybody else. This type of sin is particularly dangerous in cases of leadership. A lot of leaders can start to get this superiority complex. When I was in the military, I would see this happen quite a bit when people got promoted from E3, E4, E4 to E5. Yes, you start to separate yourself from your old peers, but you still have respect for them. You still treat them with dignity and grace. You still treat them like a human being. But when you fall into the sin of pride, you start thinking you're better than them and you treat them like dirt. And you start making their lives in a way that you wouldn't want your life to be. And that always comes back and bites you right in the ass. And then you have no one to blame but yourself. Because the energy we put out into the universe is the energy we're going to receive. The heavenly virtue that counteracts this sin is humility. When we are humble, we're able to recognize the gifts and talents of everybody around us, of our team members, the people we work with. We're able to recognize that we're all brothers and sisters having this human experience. We start seeing that nobody's better than anybody else. That a lot of us been through some hard shit. And hurt people hurt people. And we're humble enough to recognize that whenever somebody might start going off on us, instead of reacting, we're able to respond with compassion. We're able to start developing certain aspects of ourselves that create a space for ourselves, for others, to be able to recognize even their own mistakes. When somebody goes off the handles and you don't react with anger and violence, but respond with kindness, that shifts a person's mood instantly. They see how they were behaving, and it gives them that chance of reflection to see that there is another way, a better way, a way that we don't tear each other down, but we lift each other up, and we start to make this world a better place for everybody. Because all of us have made many mistakes. Nobody's perfect. But when we are humble, we recognize that it's okay. It's part of the journey. And we're all going to learn and grow together. And we're able to help push and show that learning the lesson matters. And it helps make the world a better place for everybody. And so, we're going to move on to the next deadly sin. The next deadly sin that we're going to be discussing is wrath. We can describe wrath as extreme anger that is expressed in form. Once again, we have another variation of one of the main seeds of suffering. Hatred and wrath go hand in hand. Wrath, I would say, is just an extreme form of hatred, more short-tempered, explosive. When we are allowing wrath, this deadly sin, to start to take control of us, more times than not, we're lashing out at individuals that are friends, families, maybe strangers. We start becoming people who have that very short fuse. They are ready to snap at any moment for the tiniest things. When we start falling to that sin of wrath, we start wanting to take vengeance. We start feeling that people aren't receiving their karma fast enough. That is our duty to give them their karma. In which case, we just build up our own karma. It's important that we experience all our emotions, all aspects of ourselves, so we realize what we want and what we don't want in our lives. Anger, hatred, and wrath never has a very positive end result. It might look good on the surface, you might feel good temporarily, but in the long run, there was 1,000 better ways to handle a situation. When we get angry with our partners and we lash out at them, you cannot take that back. It's like the story of the angry little boy who would continuously explode and go off the handle and toss tantrums and be a little just monster. And his father told him every time he got angry to go outside and put a nail into the fence. And then once he finally stopped getting angry, he could start pulling the nails out. Little boy started learning his lessons, started being like, yeah, I don't like this. I don't like what it's doing. I'm seeing that I'm destroying my relationships with people. Starts learning patience, compassion, gratitude. He starts turning things around. And so then he finally starts taking out all them nails. And now all the nails are out of the fence. Then the father goes outside with the little boy. He's like, look at this fence. Even though you had learned your lessons and you grew, the holes will forever be in the fence. You will never be able to take that back. So we have to be cautious. Let me rephrase that. We have to be conscious of how we're choosing to respond in situations. Getting all up in arms, all angry, all big pumpy chest and rah about things does not solve problems. It makes them worse. Because we start losing that clarity, being filled with that anger. Clouds our mind and clouds our judgment. And when we have to make critical decisions, in a split second, you could change your whole life if you're not careful. This sin is a potent sin. It can tear you down extremely quickly. All the good hard work you've done in your life could go away in an instant if you explode the wrong way and decide to take vengeance into your own hands. The heavenly virtue that counters this sin is patience. Patience is not just waiting. It's waiting with a good attitude. It's being able to take that step back, to take that breath, to give yourself just an extra second before you make a decision or a choice that you're going to regret. And it is going to change your entire life. When we start learning patience, it kind of goes back to the humility. Nobody's perfect. People are going to do things that make you mad. But how do you choose to respond to that? Nowadays, we see that this is a problem because people are at such a short fuse because of all the stress, all the things we got going on in society. We're not using practices to help build up our patience, to build up our calmness. And it's so crazy. Some of the unnecessary deaths that occur. It can be heartbreaking. This sin is heartbreaking. And so let us all develop our patience so we can give ourselves just that extra second, that extra breath to really think about what we're doing, the choices that we're about to make before we make them. Because your life can change in a split second. Moving on to our last deadly sin. The last deadly sin we're going to be discussing is envy. We can define envy as a feeling of discontented or resentful longing for someone else's possessions, qualities, etc. Envy it goes hand in hand with jealousy. When we start talking about the power of jealousy, we have the story of Joseph to show us how potent envy and jealousy can be. It's crazy. Some of the ways we will turn on each other or hurt each other because we're envious of what others have. When we're being envious, we're sending out ill will. We're wishing that we had somebody else's stuff. We're wishing or saying that they don't deserve what they have. Why are they in that position and I'm in this position? They don't deserve it. Meh. When we're sending out ill will to each other, we're making ourselves sick. We're putting out that negative energy. And when we fall into that place of jealousy, it doesn't matter how much we love somebody. You will unconsciously start to try to tear them down. Whether it be with little snickering comments, whether it be with small actions of deceit. Envy and jealousy is a powerful emotion. One that we start to lose ourselves. We start thinking that we start focusing so much on other people and what they have that we're no longer recognizing the gifts, talents, and abilities we have in ourselves. There's no need to be jealous. There's no need to be envious because you're awesome and I'm awesome. He's awesome. She's awesome. Is recognizing that, yes, that person has good qualities, but so do you. It's impressive. There's a lot to learn from each other. But when we're so blinded by envy, we can't learn nothing. We just try to tear each other down, wasting the connections that we have, destroying them faster and faster and faster. Envy is like a snake. It slithers in, likes to creep in small actions, small words, and then it continues to grow and fester until you're finally at the point when you're trying to get your brother swimming with the fishes and you send them off to slavery. But then, oh, looky look, your brother became the pharaoh. Oh, and his dream was right. Oh, you know what I'm saying? That story was a good description of jealousy. I would really encourage anybody to go check out the story of Joseph. That one was a good one. And the heavenly virtue that counteracts jealousy, envy, is gratitude or kindness. Because when we start recognizing that it's not you versus me, that is me versus me, you versus you, and that we're just both on our own separate journeys trying to lift each other up, kindness goes a long way. There's no need for me to tear you down. There's no need for you to tear me down. There's a need for us to lift each other up through the challenges and tribulations that everybody, every single one of us is going to go through. You're not going to go through this life without challenges or tribulations. And instead of trying to knock another down, lift each other up. Because that's how we make this world a better place. By recognizing that together, we can do so much more together than we can do separate. And so, I'm going to go ahead and end it there. Thank you everybody for sticking around until the end of this training episode. I hope everybody was able to get something out of this 7 deadly sins discussion. Now that we're at the end, go ahead, hit that subscribe button if you haven't hit it yet. Go check out the Stan store, type in White Wolf 719. There you can get yourself a free Warriors of Light leveling guide. This leveling guide is going to help you get from level 1 to level 2 to level 3. This leveling guide has this information on there. It's going to help you get your own personal connection with God. Because God wants a connection with all of us. And I know right now, people really need to get connected with God. We have a lot of illusions out here. Religion being one of them. Nobody can tell you your own connection with God. You have to discover it yourself. How God and your spirit team, your angels and your ancestors and your higher self decide to talk to you. And yeah, so go ahead, get that. It's free, completely free. Also, become a volunteer for the Soul Society. I'm about to put out a video here in the next Soul Society podcast to really give a lot more clarification about what it is we're trying to do. Like make our basic needs, necessities invested, protected, and accessible for everybody. Build up the kingdom of spirits. Ensure that the development of the human being and the energetic pathways are a priority. Things like that. You know, the cool guy stuff. So, go ahead, become a volunteer for that. Because we are going to kick down the doors of illusion and bullshit together. And yeah, everybody have a good rest of your day, a beautiful night, a blessed week. Recognize that God is always with you. That God has got your back every step of the way, no matter what you're facing, no matter what challenge is in your way. Trust in God, and God will see you through. And everybody, have a beautiful, blessed rest of your day, rest of your week, rest of this month. Love and light leads the way. Peace, and have a good day.